Welcome. So, Dawn, how about we start off with you telling a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I live in St. Paul with my husband and two sons and two cats and a dog. I have a third son who is a graduate student in engineering at the University of Minnesota. I've lived in a lot of places. I've spent most of my life in Minnesota, but I was born in California and I've lived in Wyoming, not Wyoming, Minnesota, but Wyoming the state. And I've also lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and I spent 2 years in Belgium with my family.
Very cool. That's a
Mhm.
lot of like really interesting. It's really cool that you got to go to Belgium. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was a
Sorry,
really good experience.
rambling.
Mhm.
So then, how about you tell us a little bit about your work in your field? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Excuse me. So I am an associate professor in the Department of Veterinary and Biomedical Sciences. And that's a department that's located in the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Minnesota. So I'm not a vet, but I'm a microbiologist and I teach. One of my main jobs is to teach a large enrollment microbiology course to undergrads. And my students are nursing students and students who are hoping to go to vet school, PA school, so kind of students headed for the health sciences. So I have a teaching appointment, but I also spend quite a bit of time doing what's called service work, which means I'm on a lot of committees. So one of my committees that I'm on is I'm currently the president of a local microbiology society called the Henrici Society. And I'm also active in my professional societies and work in my department. And then finally, I do some research, and I sort of have two threads of that. The first one is I do collaboratively with another member of the department, and um, I am interested in antibiotic resistance. And so we isolate E. coli from grocery store chicken. Then we ask the question, how much antibiotic resistance can we find in the E. coli isolates? And does that depend on how the chicken was raised? So for example, if we buy chicken that was raised without antibiotics, does the level of resistance look different there than it would in chicken that was raised conventionally, for example? So chicken that might be raised with antibiotics. And the other kind of research I've been doing is educational research. So I'm curious about how do students learn in an online environment? How can we design online classes so that students can have community and still learn collaboratively with each other and still have the same level of engagement?
That is a lot. You must be insanely busy with all of that.
Well, I don't know. I am busy, yes, but it's I don't know. Every day I just tackle what I can.
Yeah, well, that is like I said, that's a lot. And it's great because you said it seems like you're really foundational for a lot of like learning for like especially for public health and for various other aspects of microbiology. That's really awesome. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. How did you go say like, maybe your high school era or early college, and how did you get from there to where you are now, as like as a teacher, as someone who is doing all this research and all this other work in microbiology?
Yeah, I did not come from a science family. My parents had gone to college, but my dad is an English teacher and my mom taught special ed. And I didn't have any scientists in my family. And so, I certainly was supported, but it wasn't like I had a role model and I was, trying to do what they were doing. I also went to high school in a very small town and my graduating class was 29. And that was
Oh,
the biggest class in my school. And so we didn't really have a science program. We didn't have a science fair. We had one teacher taught all the science classes from 7th grade to 12th grade. And so um, the way that I learned to like science was in two ways. One is that I just was very fascinated by plants. I loved houseplants. And when I was a kid, I used to get an allowance, and I would spend all my allowance on plants. And my dad built me this big area on the window, a big shelf, and it had a grow light on it. And I just had it completely filled with plants. And I spent lots of time making cuttings and watching the roots grow and things like that. And then in high school, I can't say I didn't have a very good teacher, but I really liked the biology textbook. I just thought the stories in there were fascinating. And so that's kind of what made me think, well, maybe I want to study biology in college. The other thing is that I don't know, to students today, this is just going to sound like another world, but the reason that we moved to northern Minnesota as a super rural area was my parents really wanted to experience kind of back to nature. So we moved from a city to the middle of nowhere, and they grew all their own produce, and we had a couple pigs, and I had a horse. And part of this what experiment in a way excuse me, was that we didn't get to bring our TV with us, you know. And
oh,
so you could imagine I was 13 and I moved away from all my friends, and now I'm in the middle of nowhere. And in my mind, I had nothing to do. And so I spent all my time really reading books and riding my horse sometimes, and then practicing piano. And so by the time I got to college, I thought, well, I guess I could major in biology or I could major in music. We'll just see how it goes.
hmm.
And I decided after my first year that probably I wasn't going to major in music. So go for biology. And I really liked my classes. I loved my college biology classes. So it seemed like a good fit. And even though I don't know that I saw myself as a scientist necessarily, I saw myself as a teacher. My dad was a teacher, and I just always imagined that I would teach. I just liked doing that kind of thing. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to get my brother and his friends, and I would organize them all and give them little assignments and teach them and stuff. So maybe I ended up in the right place. So then I thought, well, if I want to teach college, I need to go to graduate school, and which is what I did, and got my PhD, and then got married, and had kids, and did a postdoc, and traveled to Belgium, and came back, and then kind of settled down and did some teaching at St. Kate's for 3 years, and then I got hired at the University of Minnesota.
Wow, that's a really, really cool like kind of path. Like for one, like
Mhm.
just how you start out, like you didn't have like probably like the same access to science education as other people did.
Mhm.
And that probably was a struggle in a lot of ways, right?
It really was. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't go to a high school where, we had AP this or AP that. We didn't have AP anything. And we didn't, I didn't have a science fair, or I'd never even been in a lab or anything like that.
Yeah, and to hear how you still found
Mhm.
like ways to engage with biology and engage in kind of a form of science in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
and how that just kind of led you on this path towards biology, and it
Mhm.
just kind of cycled from there. Besides obviously that kind of not the greatest foundation for
Mhm.
science in your high school years. What other struggles did you face getting to that point?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit. When I was in graduate school, there weren't very many female role models. There were very few female faculty, and the female faculty in my department, if you were going to be a scientist,
Mm.
there were some sort of unwritten rules. And one was that you would either not have kids or you'd have one child. And there was one person who had two kids, but her husband stayed home.
Mm.
So right off the bat, I thought, I just don't know if I fit in here because I don't know that that's what I want to do. Um, and another struggle I had, I think, was just with the way the overall ethos of the science environment. It was very competitive. And it was competitive, and it was kind of it's the way science used to be done, which is sort of every person gets one project, and then you work on that project, and you work all the time. And if you get it to work, good for you, you win. You try to get it done before someone else does it or whatever. And that just does not fit my personality at all. I definitely enjoy collaborative work, and I've never been super competitive. I don't like being in a competitive environment all the time. So that was just a really big stressor for me in graduate school. I just thought, for a while I thought, if this is how science is, I guess maybe I'm not a scientist. And then things really started to change quite a bit. And as science became more, data driven, we needed more people to collaborate. And I just remember being so excited about the Human Genome Project because it was all these people working in labs all over the world and all contributing to this one project. And I just thought, well, that's the kind of science that I want to do. I really like working with other people and working on something much bigger. And so there's definitely more of that kind of science now. And I would say science education has changed a lot too, or it is changing. It's not the same everywhere. But when I was in college, I certainly had some really excellent teachers, but I also had, especially in chemistry, but kind of more old school style, like, here's the material, you either get it or you don't. If you
Yeah.
get it, you're a scientist. If you don't, I guess you're not cut out to be one. And I spend a lot of time thinking about teaching, and I've gone to teaching conferences every year for many, many years. And that is not the way science should be taught, you know. And science is something that anyone can learn. And it's something that people learn in different ways, and it needs to be presented in different ways. And so I hope that science is less scary than it was when I was studying it.
I really like your point about, trying to make science education more, um, I guess the term that I would think of is like
Mhm.
accessible,
Mhm.
making it
Mhm.
so that it's not just people who get it in the way that it's taught in like one way.
Mhm.
I when I was younger, I had a lot of hard times learning a lot of stuff, due to
Mhm.
I just didn't have the learning style that a lot of my peers did in some of my schools, and so uh, I can say that yeah, there is definitely been changes and shifts in like how we teach science, both like in like high school and elementary school, but also I would say as well in college.
Mhm.
And it's always nice to hear about the progress that we make, Um, similarly, as you said, with the changes in like how scientific research is done.
Mhm.
It's kind of crazy to me to hear the idea of research being competitive when you're constantly building on top of other people's work, so why would you try to be hostile towards other people's work, you know?
Mhm.
Um, But yeah, what advice nowadays would you have for someone who's trying to get into microbiology?
Well, I think microbiology is very exciting. I mean, of course, I think it's really exciting. It's the best field, right? But it is definitely a field that is changing all the time. And it's just so many applications. I mean, we need microbiologists in the food industry and in the beverage industry, but, and obviously in the medical industry, agriculture, microbes are super important in soil science and plant pathology. And in biotechnology, there's so many exciting ways that microbes are being used to generate products or to, um, even as like biosensors. And so I would say it's such a big field and it's a growing field. So, and then I would say too that I think, as I said before, if you can have a growth mindset, I don't think it's not that you're either good at science or you're not good at science. It's maybe you're in a class, and if it's just a person just talking at you for an hour and then you're supposed to take it all in. My friend who's an educator, education specialist, always says 10% of students learn that way. And that means that 90% don't. And so if you take a class and you just didn't do as well as you wanted to, try not to be discouraged. Take another one. Try different kinds of studying, or try to learn collaboratively with other people, because we need you. We need scientists. And I think the most important thing is just be persistent. And that is, we always in life there are setbacks. And I think what really makes people successful is that they just learn from those setbacks and then they kind of pick themselves up and keep going.
Do you have any other additional comments that you'd like to make known, be about your work or about just microbiology in general?
Well, I was going to say, if you're interested in microbiology, what I tell my students is that it's just everywhere. Just obviously with COVID, we've been made aware of that, but also, I mean, there's just every day I open the New York Times on my phone, and there's a couple news stories about. And so if you just kind of keep your eyes open in news outlets, you'll hear all kinds of stories. Um, and I think if you can also go to the website for the American Society of Microbiology, and that has a lot of great information, and you can look there and see what kind of careers are available, get some insight into that.
Thank you so much for your time, Dawn.
All right, thanks for interviewing me. I enjoyed talking with you, Mordecai.
Yeah, again, thank you for your time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.